let's analyze this. So, future Hall of Famer and I guess former WWE star. I don't know. Anyway, former 6-time world champion, an all-time great, Chris Jericho, recently did an interview with Chris Van Vliet, prominent wrestling interviewer, in Florida, about recently signing with All Elite Wrestling, the new promotion that was founded and is headed by Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and others. He's also going to mention if CM Punk and or Kenny Omega will sign with the promotion as well, and was Vince McMahon upset about this recent signing. It definitely surprised me. Knocked me in a little bit of a loop. We all know Chris Jericho is way past his prime, and some people believe that he shouldn't still be wrestling. Do I believe that he should still be wrestling? No. But Chris Jericho is probably the gimmick master. I would definitely say he is the greatest gimmick of all time, in a sense where he is able to switch up like a chameleon and blend in wherever he goes and be able to adapt and change to the times. So he's gonna give this interview and explain his thoughts about everything, and let's see what he has to say.
I realized that, like the Bucks and like Kenny and these guys, you can make a good living outside of the WWE. And then when you have...
That is true. That is very true. But you can make a good living if you're a big star and a top name, which you, Chris, have already had that advantage of being that. So, of course, you were going to make good money when you originally signed with New Japan Pro Wrestling. You've already had that name for 20 years now.
A billionaire getting involved. Suddenly I get the biggest offer of my career by far.
What a year you've been having so far.
I thought that we would do something in the back of the car, a little bit different. So it looks like we're kind of having a secret meeting. We kind of are, because we're hiding, because right next door there's a bunch of fans. So rather than go inside and get mobbed, as you will, I thought we could just out here and save you some of the hassle. But yeah.
You mean you'll get mobbed and hassled? Chris, you look so out of shape right now. I don't know if it's that shirt or the jacket or your gut, but I could see your gut from here. Well, Chris has never been in the best shape, let's be honest. Even when he came back to the WWE in early 2012, is alleged and rumored that he had to have some type of liposuction type procedure done on him in order for him to lose that fat that he had started gaining in the late 2000s when he had that heel run, that classic Nick Bockwinkel-esque. I said Bockwinkel? The fuck? That Nick Bockwinkel-esque heel run.
I mean, it's what day is it today? January
the 12th.
Yeah, it's been a crazy, crazy less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But stuff that we've been working on for a while, and it makes me laugh because today is Saturday, and it was just a week ago that I was in one of the main events of the Tokyo Dome.
Yeah.
But so much has happened since then that feels like it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. And I will admit, I was surprised that you made the announcement that you were going to AEW, because there were rumors for a while that it was you and JR were going to be part of this or start your own company or something like that.
Yeah, that was a good one, that me and JR were starting your own company.
Yeah.
And that's
I didn't hear about that one. That one is new to me. How did that rumor start? One of you peeps can let me know.
Really, there was zero to that. So it is kind of funny when you read something like that and everyone's sending me emails and
wrestling fans are the worst when it comes to starting rumors. They want to be so right, and then they end up being so wrong.
McMahon sending me emails you know anything about this? It's But I mean, All Elite Wrestling is something that's been in the works for a while, obviously, And I was surprised too. I mean, once again, that deal was only finalized when I got back from the Dome. So I think I signed the contract last Sunday, so less than a week ago. So it's been a very crazy week for sure.
But is this something you had been talking about for a while, or something you were interested in doing for a while?
I don't know if interested in and hear people that come and go all the time that want to start up a company, and it's so hard to do, obviously, and it's so expensive, and you got to have the right guys, but the timing of it worked because you have, I think Shad Khan is like the 210th richest person in America or something along those lines. His son Tony is a huge wrestling fan, expert, understands the business. Both of them own, they own the Jacksonville Jaguars, they own the Fulham Football Club in London, and various other.
Isn't it funny how these quote-unquote businessmen, when they like Jericho mentions one of them being a huge wrestling fan and having an expansive knowledge and understanding of the business, but when it comes to YouTubers who have been wrestling fans their whole lives and have expansive knowledge on the business, when it comes to them, they're just stupid marks. I'll admit there are some stupid ass marks out there. There are. But, there are a lot of legitimate, comprehensive, non-emotional, non-biased wrestling fans out there who actually want to see the best of the best. And they still get shunned. I guess it's because they don't have much money, I guess.
Arenas and chains and all these other things around the world, so they have the business acumen, and then you also have the timing of, to start a wrestling company you need about 6 to 8 legit top guys, and you had about 6 to 8 legit top guys whose contracts all ended at the right time. Yeah. And with the exception of myself, most of them are household names in wrestling fans' world, but to mainstream, no one knows who they are, so they're going to see these guys and go, who are these guys? They'll be 15, 20-year overnight sensations, as far as the amount of time they've been working. So,
well, I wouldn't say they'll be overnight sensations. It depends on what type of deal that AEW strikes in terms of television, in terms of platform, things of that nature. So, who knows? I mean, if they're going to be solely based on the internet, they might not get that much exposure. But if they're going to strike a very lucrative television deal, then yeah, they will be mainstream. At the end of the day, you can say television is dead, you can say cable is dead, you can say pay-per-view is dead, you can say all of that all you want. But at the end of the day, television is still the top dog in terms of social platform, mainstream exposure, and just becoming a star and being a star. At the end of the day, TV still rules in terms of branding, in terms of revenue, in terms of ratings, all of that. Even though ratings is not as important as it used to be, but still. In terms of mainstream exposure and star appeal, and just having that massive celebrity, it all comes down to television. Television exposure is still very important today.
All of these things kind of happened at the same time. So, something that I heard about 4 or 5 months ago, never really took it seriously. Then as the negotiations progressed, I realized it's a very good chance that I could end up with AEW, and I did.
I just remember you saying, though, a while back that you never wanted to sign with another company in North America because you didn't want to invest. What changed?
That's exactly what he said.
Life. I mean, it's one of those things I never would have guessed it, but as the past year progressed, going from New Japan to All In to the cruise, and kind of seeing how life was on the other side, I realized that, like the Bucks and like Kenny and these guys, you can make a good living outside of the WWE. And then when you have a billionaire getting involved, suddenly I get the biggest.
Like I said, making a good living outside of the WWE comes down to the name, appeal, star value, and exposure. Like, a lot of people say that the Young Bucks, became a name on their own, just being around in the indies and, being charismatic and being involved in good storylines. But people forget that the Young Bucks used to be in TNA. They were Generation Me, if you folks understand and remember. They used to be Generation Me in TNA. That was when they got mainstream, not mainstream exposure, because TNA is not mainstream, never has been really, but that's when they got that exposure. Most wrestling fans remember the Young Bucks as being Generation Me in TNA. And had they not have been in TNA, who knows what would have happened. I'm not going to say that they wouldn't have the success that they have now, because they didn't last that long in TNA. They were not in TNA that long. But still, that TNA exposure, that TNA audience, them being with that company, it shot them up a little bit. We have to acknowledge that. And Cody Rhodes, we already know with Cody Rhodes. We already know with him what the deal is with him.
For my career, by far, I couldn't say no.
Does that mean now you're completely done with WWE?
Well, I mean, maybe in 3 years I might, go there or be associated with them or whatever. But for right now,
go there to wrestle, Chris? Are you saying to wrestle? I hope not. I hope not. Because in 3 years, you'll be 51. I cannot see a 51-year-old Chris Jericho wrestling. I don't even want to see a 48-year-old Chris Jericho wrestling, but we have to see that.
Next 3 years, it's AEW. That's where I'm signed, and that's the call I have.
Like, do you have a goal that maybe you want to finish your career in WWE?
My career, I never really expected it to go this long. And then 2016 came around, and the thing with Kevin Owens started, which was just ridiculously popular.
Yeah.
And suddenly Chris Jericho's name value is bigger than ever. And then the opportunity to do Alpha versus Omega, Kenny versus Jericho at the Tokyo Dome. Suddenly, in a business standpoint, now Jericho's making a difference to help this company, New Japan, make some real inroads in the States.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, and then all these other things happen to where I have this great...
It's kind of sad that it took Jericho this long to actually become a draw, like a legitimate draw. You could blame Vince in a way, because in the early 2000s, Chris should have been at the height of his career. And, I mean, match-wise, you could say he was, but just overall booking, no. In the early 2000s, and I'm talking post-Attitude Era. I'm talking during the quote-unquote so-called reign of terror, because he was on Raw for that whole 3-year stretch from 2002 to 05, where Jericho, they were just moving him all around the card. 1 minute he would be main eventing Survivor Series in the first ever Elimination Chamber match, with Triple H and RVD, Booker T, Kane, Shawn, all of those guys. And then the next minute, he would be in the middle of the card on Raw having a classic ladder match for the IC title against Christian, but for the IC title. And next minute, he would be in a random, I wouldn't say random, but a comical, decent storyline with Christian again, where, where they were betting on who would be able to kiss or fuck Lita and Trish first or whatever, betting on it with a Canadian dollar. And he's feuding with Cena as the world champion, Cena being the world champion, that is, and he gets carried out of Raw by in a loser gets fired match or whatever. I think the stipulation was only if Jericho lost, he would be fired. But you get my point. They were up and down with him so much in the early 2000s, to the point where you didn't really see him as a big star anymore, like he was in the Attitude Era. But even in his second run, you know, he was bigger, worth more, and booked better than his first run in a way, but he still lacked that star appeal, mainly because his world title reigns were short.
Here in Japan, it was only supposed to be one show, but then signed on for 3 more matches, and then, you know, the cruise comes up, and I need a main event for that, so I do that match. I never really expected to still be wrestling, but then to be wrestling at the highest of levels with my name bigger now than it's ever been. Yeah. Who knows, man? I mean,
I wouldn't say, now Chris, I wouldn't say that you're wrestling at the highest of levels. I wouldn't say that. See, Shawn Michaels into his 40s was still wrestling at the highest of levels. Are you wrestling at a high level? Yes. But the highest of levels, that's a little bit unfair to say. I wouldn't go that far. Because I've seen that even over the last 2 years, you've slowed down even more. I've watched your matches. I've watched his matches. He's slowed down even more in the last 2 years. And honestly, I'm ready for him to retire. Because Jericho has been in many dream matches. Even dream matches that we didn't even ask for. Like the one with Kenny Omega he was in. So, you know, if you peeps have been on this channel before and you've seen my previous videos, you'd know that I'm not okay with wrestlers wrestling into their 50s. To me, that reeks of being desperate, possibly having financial instability, or just having nothing else to do in life besides wrestling.
I don't ever really think about what I'm going to be doing in the future. If I finish my career with the WWE or AEW, I mean, my time in the WWE is cemented. If I go back or not, it's not like
Agreed.
It was back in the day when you're blackballed for life and you'll never hear the name Chris Jericho again. It's not like that. So whether I go back there or not, I mean...
Well, I mean, WWE doesn't really blackball people. They don't blackball that many. Now, Benoit is completely blackballed, but not too many people have really been blackballed. Like Brock Lesnar was brought back. You know, Eddie Guerrero was brought back. Jericho has been brought back. You know, who else I could say? Sid was brought back. You know, because Sid had, I think, 2 runs in the WWE. Yeah, he had 2 runs. First he was Justice, and he had that feud with Hogan. Then he came back, became Psycho Sid. First he was the bodyguard of Shawn, and then what have you. But not many wrestlers get blackballed. I believe Ken Shamrock has been blackballed, though. For what reason, I have no clue. Because I've always wanted to see Ken Shamrock come back, because his first run was very, very underwhelming, especially after his feud with The Rock. That's one name I've always wanted to see come back. I'd rather him come back to wrestling than MMA. But anyway,
I'm still always a part of the WWE, for sure.
And there was talk when you signed with AEW that you're one of the hottest free agents in wrestling. What about some of these other free agents? Do you think that they could come over? CM Punk, Kenny Omega?
Oh, no. Don't throw that name around now. We got to be careful throwing that name around. CM Punk. I think for the right amount of money and creative control, Punk could come in. But fans, wrestlers, just everyone in the industry, we need to accept that Punk doesn't want to wrestle anymore. We have to accept that. We have to understand that CM Punk does not want to wrestle anymore. And he doesn't love wrestling anymore. He's moved on. So if he's moved on, I think we should too. To be quite frank, this whole thing with Punk constantly mentioning CM Punk is getting a little bit ridiculous now. It's been almost 4 years. On the 26th or the 27th exactly will be 4 years since he walked out, and this June will be 4 years since he officially was released. So we got to get over it, man. I wish it was like this when Brock Lesnar left the first time. Nobody was clamoring for his return like they are for CM Punk. But for real, Punk, he doesn't want to do it anymore. And at this point, I don't want to see him come back anyway, under any circumstances, because he's 40. He's 40. He has bad knees. He's aged. You know, the physical toll that wrestling took on him was very obvious, especially when he fought in the UFC. It was very obvious. Punk has physically, he has nothing left. We have to accept that. I think that the fans that are clamoring for CM Punk to make a return to wrestling, they must have forgotten how really, really bad Punk looked before he left the company, before he left WWE. He did not look good. The man looked sick. I remember one Raw, I saw him cut a promo, and it was either before Survivor Series or before the Rumble, and he looked sick. He looked legitimately sick. Like he was gonna vomit in the middle of the ring. Like his skin didn't look like what it used to look like. You know, he looked, I don't want to say he looked pale, but he just didn't look right. He looked like he was going to turn purple. And like I said, the man is 40 now. And before he left, you know, not to say he wasn't still putting on great matches, but before he left, he was losing his touch anyway. Honestly, we're going to be real. He was losing his touch anyway. Because we got to remember, Punk's knees are not there like they used to be. Punk's knees haven't been there since his freaking Ring of Honor days. It's one of the reasons why he didn't use the Pepsi Plunge at all when he came into the WWE. It wasn't because they didn't want him to, or it looked similar to the pedigree, like stupid ass fans would like you to believe. But he didn't do it because he said that if he does it one more time, his knees will literally explode because he's got bad knees. You know, his knees aren't as healthy as they used to be. So we got to end this CM Punk talk. I know you guys miss him. To a certain extent, I do too. I miss seeing him as a professional wrestler, but he left a lot. He left a lot of classic matches and just a lot of overall memories. And I'm fine with that, to be honest. I'm fine with that.
I mean, CM Punk's not so much a free agent as a retired wrestler, from what I understand. Of course.
Exactly. Retired. Can we let Punk be that guy that retired and actually stayed retired? Because for once in my lifetime, I would like to actually see. Never seen that in my lifetime. We almost got it with Shawn Michaels, but then he ruined it by coming back in November. So can we let CM Punk be that one guy that said he was going to retire and actually stuck to it? I would like that. I want to see that. Makes me proud.
We'd love to have Punk come in there. And Kenny, well, you know, once I signed, the last remaining, you know, huge free agent is Kenny Omega. I mean, Jericho and Omega were the two. Where is he going to end up? I mean, I hope it's with AEW. I really do. And I guess we'll find out because his contract ends very, very quickly as well.
But there's also talk about his contract ends right around the Rumble, and people are thinking maybe they'll see him there.
People always think that. You know what I mean? I still get people asking me, so like, are you going to be in the Rumble or what? And I'm like, no, I'm with you. You know, I posted a picture last night of me and Triple H because I wanted to send the message to everybody. Everything is cool. And I still get people going like, oh, okay, so this means Jericho's coming back to the WWE. And it's all just a big ruse. It's like, But that's wrestling fans for you, man. They're the most loyal.
Well, Chris, you need to understand that back in 2016, AJ pulled the same shit that you pulled, that you're pulling right now. With the whole, oh, I'm not coming to the WWE, or I'm not coming back, blah 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 blah. And AJ did the same thing when he had, he didn't. Now, unlike Jericho, he didn't sign 3-year deals with, you know, these independent companies. But AJ, even in January of 2016, AJ was still signed to certain indie feds. He was signed for short term, you know, come in for a couple of matches. But in January, AJ was still working the indies. And he was all on Twitter saying, no, I'm not coming to the WWE. I'm not signed. I just signed with this organization. I just signed with that organization. So WWE is not in the plans. And then what the hell happened at the Rumble, Chris? Number 3, AJ Styles. So, I mean, come on. So it's not just the fans that's, you know, that's quote unquote believing that we're being worked or whatever, but no, you guys are working us too. Majority of the time, you guys are working us as well. So that's not us being delusional or wanting something that will never happen. You guys pull this shit on us sometimes. Admit it.
And questioning fans ever that want to know everything right now and don't really want to wait for the story to unfold. So, you know, like I said, starting a wrestling company, not easy. There's a lot of guys signed already. There's a lot of people out there that aren't signed. But there's also WWE, there's Ring of Honor, there's New Japan, there's Impact. There's a lot of places now for guys to go. Yeah. And that's great. You know, and WWE is signing as many guys as they can. And I think some people are starting to realize
they're signing way too many guys. Way too many.
That they're signing just to sign. And there's a lot of people that aren't really doing anything. So maybe some of those people, instead of...
Agreed. I know Chris is not about to talk those guys that have been signed that aren't doing anything, quote unquote, to sign with AEW. I know he's not trying to coax that.
Signing with the WWE because it's my chance. Maybe they'll sign with AEW and not have to.
Slick son of a bitch.
There's anything wrong with NXT, but if you know, if like Shinsuke or Dome, then spend a year in the minor leagues, yeah. A lot of people might not want to do that. Yeah. So. It's a very interesting, exciting time for fans.
Well, Shinsuke needed to be in NXT for a year. He needed to be there. Because he needed to learn how they operate. And it's a shame that he was there for a year and they didn't try to teach him any English. Knowing how Vince does things up on the main roster and how he always wants everybody to cut a freaking promo and not have managers anymore, with the exception of Brock Lesnar. Knowing that, they still didn't try to teach him any English, but that's neither here nor there.
Boys for wrestling in general.
So there's no bad blood with Triple H or with Vince right now?
Not on my end. You know, I spoke to Vince.
You say that. You say that. Every time a wrestler says, oh, there's no bad blood, there usually ends up being bad blood. It's just that they don't really want to get out people all hyped about it.
Before,
just him drinking that water just shows you that there might be something going on. You saw what he did there. He said there's no bad blood. Then he proceeds to drink some of his water or sip some of it and look away from the camera. Come on now. If we know psychology and we know how human beings function, we know that when they do that, 9 times out of 10, they're lying their ass off. I'm not calling Chris a liar. I'm just saying. If you think about it, 9 times out of 10, those guys are lying when they do that.
Before I signed, you know, and he knew it. He was very... You know, the words we exchanged very amicable, and it wasn't like it was a surprise. Business is business, you know. And Vince McMahon is my friend. I respect him. I love the guy. No ill will whatsoever. Just the business road took me this way. It would have been crazy not to do it because I might insult somebody. Yeah. And I think the first guy that would agree with that is Vince.
You know, it's amazing sitting next to you because you're the youngest 48-year-old I've ever met. What is the secret?
He's not looking like the youngest 48-year-old anymore. At least not in terms of this video. Chris is looking very old now. Like, I can see it now. Now he's really starting to look old. He's starting to really look his age. Well, I wouldn't say he looks 48. He looks slightly younger. And by slightly, I mean by 2, maybe 3 years. But he is still looking up there in age.
I don't ever, like, you know, people be like, oh.
And also that gut that he has, that wide-ass gut. You can't tell me, come on now. Let's be real here.
It's getting old. And like, I never feel that. I don't feel like, you know, the proverbial age is just a number. It is to a certain extent. You have to try. You have to stay in shape. You have to, you know, do what you have to do to
Do you stay in shape, Chris? Because from the looks of it, all right, let me chill on Chris. He's an all-time great. I'm not trying to disrespect him. I'm just stating what I see here. I'm very observant. You know, I observe a lot of things, and that gut, man. I just have a gut feeling, no pun intended, that Chris is not in shape.
Cosmetically, you know, it's like when you go to see the Stones, Mick still looks like Mick Jagger. Yeah. You know, he looks like a rock star. He looks like the...
Yeah, but you can see his age, man. The man is in his 70s. Come on now. That's technology, Chris.
Singer of the Rolling Stones. I think as long as you continue to try, and also to never feel like old or anything like that, and also the fact that I sporadically pick my place. Like, we did such a great year with Fozzy last year, that took the band to a separate level, and all of our contemporaries are in their 30s and their 20s. But who cares? When you're on stage, everyone looks the same age as long as you look the same, as long as you try, and it's the energy.
Well, let's be real, Chris. You only look the same age as, you know, these quote-unquote young folks that you're talking about, mainly because of your tattoos. Because, you know, every human being waits till they're in their 40s to start getting a bunch of tattoos, but that's neither here nor there. Midlife crisis.
That you have and the show that you put on, and then also by doing only 3-4 matches last year, 5 matches, whatever it was, you can pick and choose your spots. So every match going to...
I wouldn't say great. I'd say good to borderline great. I've seen Chris Jericho have better matches than the matches he's had the last year.
Poughkeepsie, nothing against fine people at Poughkeepsie, but do a matinee show at 2 in the afternoon in Poughkeepsie, and then drive 300 miles to get to the Barclays Center for Raw the next night. I mean, I don't have to do that anymore. So it does, it keeps you in...
Nor should you. You've worked hard, Chris. You've worked hard in your career. And you've been elite and one of the best for years now. So you deserve that break to not have to wrestle so much. Plus, you're... I don't want to say old, but you're not in your prime anymore, so you don't need to do that when you're not in your prime.
Curated, and it's exciting. There's a lot of great stuff going on. So 48, 28, 38, 58, to me, it's all the same as long as you...
Yeah. I don't know about that. Judging by Undertaker and Kane and Triple H still going, I don't know if that's all the same.
Still have the passion and love for what you're doing.
Your name is always thrown around as the GOAT, or at least one of the GOATs. How does this make you feel?
Chris is not the GOAT. That's, well, just speaking from opinion, I do not feel like he's the GOAT. And for you fans out there who understand what you are watching and have been under that understanding of what you've been watching for years, you would know that Chris Jericho is not the GOAT. He's not even in my top 10. So if we really want to be fair, now, is he in my top 20? Possibly. I would say he's in my top 20. Because he is an all-time great, but The GOAT, like I said, he's the greatest gimmick, or he's the greatest gimmick man, or arguably the greatest character in terms of, he fits like a glove. Unless it's OJ's glove, but he fits like a glove, and he's like a chameleon. He blends within any scenario, within any situation, within any storyline. He makes everything that he's around works. He makes any type of system that he's in work. That's gonna be Chris Jericho's legacy right there. That's his legacy. He's a chameleon. He's wrestling's chameleon, ultimate chameleon. I don't know anybody else who has been able to blend with any and everything the way that Chris Jericho has been able to. So that's the credit that I give to him. But the GOAT, that's another video for another day.
That you are the greatest of all time, or if not the best, certainly one of the best.
Well, that's not for me to decide. I don't think you ever see
Well,
Wayne.
I'm saying it then.
Okay, thank you. I don't think you ever see Wayne Gretzky walk.
Well, Chris, you're only saying, Chris Van Vliet, you're only saying that because you're sitting right next to him. How many times have these reporters or interviewers or analysts or what have you will call whoever they're sitting next to the GOAT? I bet you, well, I wouldn't bet you, but I guarantee you that if you look at any of Chris Van Vliet's other interviews, he's probably said the same thing that he's saying to Chris Jericho to other wrestlers that he's interviewed.
Around going, I'm the great one. That's for other people to say it, and it's great to know.
Agreed. I hope LeBron James was watching this video.
Oh, that my name is mentioned in that way, and then when you really think about it, I guess there's a case for it. I'm coming up, let's see, next year will be 30 years in this biz, and still been on top that whole time, basically. There's been ups and downs. That's wrestling. You're not always on top. You go down, you come up, you go down, you come up, especially when you stay in the same place. Which is great for me to go to Japan, where, guess what, I'm the top guy. And then I have my own cruise, where it's the Chris Jericho cruise, and then do, All Elite, where suddenly it's Jericho's the big signing. So,
well, Shawn Michaels was able to proverbially, I don't even think that's a word. Shawn Michaels was pretty much practically able to stay on top for most of his career without going anywhere else. So I don't know. Does that make him the GOAT? Because he didn't have to go anywhere else. You had to go to Japan. He didn't have to go anywhere else. I'm just saying.
It's almost like the old days of the territories when you start, burning out in one place, you go to another place. Okay, Texas is starting to get old for me, then I'll go to Portland, or I'll go to, to Calgary. Now it's going to these different companies. Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of staying relevant and always reinventing, too. That's another big thing. It's always reinventing. And
there you go. Bingo. Bingo, Chris. That's your legacy. Always able to reinvent and blend and change up. Never getting too stale. Never getting too boring. That's what makes you an all-time great, Chris. I just don't have you in my top 10. But I will release a video at some point, eventually, possibly sometime before WrestleMania, where I will give you my top 10.
Giving people new, fresh ideas and looks and thoughts and vibes. It's David Bowie, man. I completely modeled that after him. Every Bowie record was different from the last. He always looked different, but it was still David Bowie, and that was exciting. Beatles.
So that means we're going to see a new Chris Jericho in AEW. You noticed you didn't have the makeup during the press conference?
Yeah, the makeup really seemed to me that fits in Japan, like that was a cool, and even in Japan, the press conference.
I didn't really like that, to be honest. I was very confused at what Chris was trying to do when it came to that. I don't know. I forgot that one wrestler that kind of had a similar makeup type of thing or design to him in the early 90s in the excuse me, in the WWF, where he came in and he was essentially a mime character. One of you peeps could let me know the name of that wrestler, or I'll probably just look him up after this video, but I forgot his name. But Jericho reminded me of that guy. And I said to myself, that gimmick or that type of design, that type of character design doesn't work well in terms of being a top star, but
because I didn't have the makeup on, that was only in the ring. It just felt right for there. Maybe it'll feel right for here, I don't know. I mean, I do like the look of that character besides the makeup, so maybe it'll be more a little bit in that line. But the lighted jacket guy with the sparkly trunks and the list is gone. Even if I went back to WWE, and that's another reason why I wasn't really excited about that. To go back, I know what they would want. They want the list. That's what you want to see, and it's like would feel really weird going back to that. Yeah. You know, it's never as good the second time as it was the first time. Yeah. And that was
true. Well, you can make the argument, because there's certain things that are better the second time than the first time, except movie sequels. Movie sequels are never as good as the original. But when it comes to wrestling gimmicks and storylines and matches, sometimes the sequels are better than the original. Like Shawn Michaels' second run was better than his first run. You know, I mean, come on. That's something right there. That's something right there. Chris Jericho's second run was better than his first run in terms of popularity, being over, gimmick changes, that overall star quality. He was world champion longer in his second run than he was in his first run, so that tells you something.
You know, it was a good year and a half of that, and if that, you know, that character, the list, never comes back again, it's still not going to make it any less popular.